Thank you for volunteering to serve as a competitive event judge with Texas DECA. My name is Nicole Willis. I'm the communications manager for Texas DECA, and today I'm just going to kind of walk you through the judging process. I'm going to show you what materials you'll receive as a competitive event judge and walk through those, and then share some tips and tricks and a few things for you to remember on the day of that will set you up for success. So when you arrive on site, you'll check in following the instructions provided via email. After everyone has arrived and checked in, or most judges have arrived and checked in, you'll get a short review of the information provided here today before you begin seeing students for the day. So when you arrive in the competitive event space, you'll be shown to the table or area that you will be at for the day. There are advisors assigned to each event or event area, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask them throughout the day. When you sit at your judge table, you'll have a packet that looks kind of like this. It will have a label on the front that includes the event you're judging and a list of the items included in the packet. So let's take a look at the packet and go over what's in it and how to get started with those items. In your packet, you'll have the judge guidelines. This is a sample of what judge guidelines will look like. We don't release the actual scenario prior to the event, so this is not the scenario that you will be scoring students on the day of. We don't release it so that that scenario and those performance indicators don't get out to students who have not competed yet, and give them a leg up in competition. So when you arrive on site on the day of, you will receive this and you'll be given time to read through it. So this first page that you see here on the left are the participant instructions. The participant instructions, as well as the event situation, which is that middle page, you will have in your judge packet, and the students can also see during their prep time. So the participant instructions just have some guidelines for the competitive event, also shows those 21st century skills that they're going to be scored on, as well as the performance indicators that you will be scoring them on. The middle page here shows the event situation, so it breaks down what the problem is, who you are as the judge to the competitors, and then also who the competitors are to you, and then it gives some additional details to help them come up with a solution to the problem. About a third of the way down the page, you'll see where it says Judge Roleplay Characterization. So about the first half of this section is the same as the event situation. And then the second half, it expands on the scenario a little bit, as well as provides you some questions to ask to the students. So it provides those questions. You can ask those questions exactly. You can modify them a little bit. However, we do ask that you ask the same questions of every group. So if you change the questions a little bit for the first group, take note of what changes you made to those questions, so that you can continue to ask the questions in the same way to every group. And then also try to ask those questions even if they've already answered them in their initial presentation. This is what the prepared event guidelines look like. Each event is going to look a little bit different. It's going to have the event name at the top, but they all have basically the same information in them. They have a description of the event. They show what the students are supposed to include in their presentation, and then it also gives you the topic or the scenario for that year. Some of them are year specific, so they'll say 2025 topic, and some of them are generalized and they stay the same throughout every year. Next in your packet, you're going to have a section schedule. The section schedule is just a list of all the students that you'll see for the day. It'll have times out next to each student, but you won't need to worry about those times or keeping your own time. Our advisors and chaperones are in charge of moving the students throughout the competition space, as well as timing their presentations and cutting them off if they go over time. This just kind of helps you stay on track and keep up with where we are in the day. We do ask that when you sit down and get everything out of your judge packet, you go ahead and flip to that section schedule and take a look at all the students that you'll be evaluating. And check for conflicts of interest. If you know somebody that is on your competitor list, please let one of the event workers know so that we can get you switched to a different section of that same event or switched with a different event. You'll also have rubrics for each student or group of students that you'll be evaluating. This is what the rubric will look like for role play events. In the upper right-hand corner where you see that participant and ID number and blanks right now, the students' names will be printed in that section. So we just ask that you kind of verify with every group that you are filling out the correct rubric for the student or students that you are seeing at that time. So let's take a look at what is included in the rubric. So we're going back to the participant instructions, the event guidelines here. So that first page at the very bottom where you see performance indicators, if you look over at the rubric at the top, see there are 5 performance indicators on the left-hand side. On the rubric in the top section, those first 5 scoring categories are the performance indicators from that first page. They just essentially moved them over there and put a question mark behind them. And then the second half, the 6 through 10, are those 21st century skills, and then an overall impression to the questions that you ask. So the students are given exactly what you are going to be looking for and grading them on as they are reading the role play scenario and coming up with their solutions. This is what the grading rubrics will look like for the prepared events. As I noted when we were going over the guidelines, they have access to this from the beginning, so they can see exactly what they are being scored on as they are developing their presentation. So now we're going to take a little closer look at the rubric and talk about your scoring. So you can see here on this rubric example that it's broken up into 4 sections. You have little to no value, below expectations, meets expectations, and exceeds expectations. So you as a judge for that day are going to set your own expectations essentially for, nope, I hate that. So these 4 sections will help you kind of give an initial categorization to the students about whether they hit those performance indicators and whether they met your expectations or not. So you will set your own expectations for the day, what you hope to see them hit, and then score based on that. So the students that you are evaluating are only competing against other students that have seen you. They're not competing against the students at the judge sitting next to you, so you don't have to worry about how your fellow judges around you are scoring. After you've decided on a score for each number, you will write that score out in the blank box in the right-hand side of the rubric. And then at the end, you will total up that score. Please don't just circle your score. Actually write it out in the blank box so that there's no question about what your intended score was. If you maybe accidentally circled two numbers at the same time, by writing it out, it gives us a clear picture of what you wanted to score the students. And then again, at the end, you will add that score up and write the total at the bottom. The first is to wait until the end to ask questions. They are given an allotted amount of time to give their presentations, and they should be leaving time for you to ask questions. But you want to be sure that they get all of their information in before you ask questions. So try not to interrupt them to ask your questions. Don't give any verbal feedback to the students. This can include things like great job, you're the best that I've seen today, XYZ could use some work, any little things like that you might feel the urge to say at the end as they're leaving. Please try to refrain from those. It could create a false sense of hope for the students. And while it may be true that they are the best that you've seen that day, or the best that you've ever seen, or that they did a really great job, please keep in mind that there are additional scoring elements that can change the outcome of the day. Again, don't wait until the end to score everyone. If you need to lightly circle your scores on the rubric and lightly fill in the scores in the Scantron, that is fine, but it'll save you a lot of time at the end if you've at least given them a preliminary first score, and then at the end you can go back and make tweaks if you need to do that. Please avoid giving 100s and ties. If you do have a tie in your scoring, you will be asked to break those ties before you leave. Again, don't worry how hard the person next to you is judging. The students that you are evaluating are only competing against the other students that you're seeing that day. Just being fair and consistent in your own grading. Role play students do not get their rubric back. So if you want to take notes on their rubric for yourself, feel free to do that. They will not be getting those back, so they won't see notes on there. And then also on that note, if you have judged for a mock competition before, where you've been encouraged to take notes on their rubric because they get them back, just know that they do not get them back here, so that they will not see what you've written on their rubric. Prepared events do get their rubrics back. So this means that they will see anything that is written on that rubric. If you have some time and you would like to give some feedback on the rubric, feel free to do so. However, we're not going to hold up competition so that you can finish writing your feedback on that rubric. And also keep in mind that because they get the rubrics back, if you are taking notes just for your own scoring purposes on that rubric, they will also see that. So if you are going to take notes on something that you don't want them to see, you may want to ask for some scratch paper to take notes on. Again, thank you so much for volunteering as a competitive event judge with Texas DECA. You will get a reminder of all of this information on the day of, and there will be teachers in the room with you if you have any questions or need further explanation.